In today's video, we'll take a look at 3 tabletop mini arcades released by Coleco. This is the Revival series and was announced on Kickstarter some time ago. There are 3 different models, Berzerk, Frenzy, and TopRacer. While the Kickstarter has ended, remaining stock may still be available on eBay. But before you rush out and pick one up, there is a caveat that you need to be aware of, and we'll cover the entire process in this video. I'm John, and welcome to Wagner's Tech Talk. This Pac-Man is a tabletop arcade machine that was originally released by Coleco in 1981. This unit is one I picked up on eBay years ago and is in rather poor condition cosmetically. Most all of the labels have deteriorated or were removed, but it still remains fully playable. In person, when looking at the game, there is no flickering that we're seeing here. That has to do with a mismatch between the camera and the LCD panel refresh rate. But I thought it would be fun to show here since the new Coleco Berzerk, Frenzy, and the TopRacer models we'll be taking a look at are very similar in terms of size and design. Both the Berzerk and Frenzy tabletops had a limited production run of 5,000 units. However, at the time in this video, there were still some available on eBay. We'll talk a little bit about that in a few moments if you're interested in picking one up. It's nice that they included a manual explaining the basic gameplay and scoring. However, keep in mind the games built into these devices are not the original Stern arcade ROMs, but instead are NES ROMs. Both are very good ports, however. The machine was well packed and includes a micro USB to USB Type A to power the device. However, no power adapter is included, so you'll need to supply your own. I found it interesting that both Berzerk and Frenzy have a 4-button layout, when neither require 4 buttons to play. This might make it an interesting modding project in the future. If there's interest, let me know in the comments below. The buttons feel okay, not super high quality, but they are functional, and the same with the joystick. There is a select and start button to start the game, and a power switch at the top. The side artwork looks fine, and it's the same on both sides. At the back is the micro USB port for power. At the front is a volume control slider and headphone jack. At full volume, it doesn't get very loud. Let's listen. If you look closely here, you'll see a rather big issue that we'll soon fix. But first, I want to mention that you can also power the game with 4 AA batteries if you want. However, you may want to hold off on that. I'll explain why very soon. When you first power on the machine, you'll see the title screen. Again, it's not the original arcade ROM, but the biggest issue is that these units shipped out to backers with a rather serious flaw. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can't see the blue walls. This makes the game impossible to play as you can't see the exit, and if the character hits the side of the wall, you lose a life. Recognizing the issue after the unit shipped, Coleco corrected the problem by sending out replacement boards for both Berzerk and Frenzy. However, this fix requires opening up the machine, swapping out the board. It's not hard to do, but it does take about 10 or 15 minutes, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. They also sent out this letter that explains the situation. Each of the replacement boards has a label at the top right indicating what machine it goes to. Let's take a quick look at Frenzy. All of the packaging and button layout is the same as with Berzerk. I like the bright blue colors used for this device, and one thing I noticed is there is a protective cover over the control panel on both machines. If you peel that off, the colors stand out a bit more. There is a minor quality issue with this particular label, but it's not a big deal for me. The manual goes over how to play the game, and again, this is an NES ROM and not the original arcade version of Frenzy. You'll also quickly notice the left display issue exists on this device too. Let's go ahead and fix that. Next, we'll replace the main board and fix the display issue. Locate the replacement board for the machine and set it nearby. If there are any batteries installed or the micro USB cable is connected, go ahead and remove them. With a small Phillips head screwdriver, remove the screw at the bottom. And at the rear, you'll also find two small screws. You'll then want to remove those as well. There are a total of 3 screws to be removed to open the chassis. Then, raise it up and allow the screws to fall out and set them to the side. There are 2 notches at the back for support. Just bring the front of the base up slightly and it should pull out at this point. However, be careful, there are 2 wires we need to disconnect. Set the base to the left of the main unit. There are 4 connections we'll need to disconnect, the 2 white connectors at the top and the flat cable at the bottom, as well as the speaker cable. After those are disconnected, there are 4 screws at these locations that we'll remove. I'll start with the 2 white connectors at the top. Use your fingernails to pinch the connector and pull up. Don't pull directly on the wires or they might break off. Then do the same for the small speaker wire. For the flat cable, be very gentle with this one. The black latch needs to be pulled downward. I found it easier to use my fingernail on the left side and the small screwdriver on the right side of the black latch. Gently pull down and remove the flat cable. Next, we'll remove the 4 screws holding the small board and the display into place. Unscrew each, and remember, the smaller of the 2 screws are used inside the case. The longer screws are for the outside assembly. Now just remove the remaining 2 screws. When you remove the board, the display is right below it. Grab it from the sides only to avoid getting fingerprints on the screen. Then pull the black tab on the display connector to the left to unlock the cable. Now you can gently remove the display panel. Again, grab it from the sides to avoid fingerprints. Now we'll take the new replacement board, flip the black latch for the display cable outward. With the display behind the new board, insert the flat cable into the connector, then lock it down by pressing the black latch to the right. Give it a slight tug to make sure it's locked into place. Take the display panel and seat it into the guide at the back and position the new board into place. If there are any cables in the way, go ahead and move them out of the way. There are 2 small pegs at the right to help position the board that you can see here and here. I'm going to go ahead and install 1 screw to hold the board and display into place, then flip it over to make sure that there aren't any fingerprints. It looks good to me, so we'll go ahead and continue. Go ahead and reinstall the remaining 3 screws. Bring the black tab for the flat controller connector down, then insert the flat cable and lock it into place by pushing up on the black connector. Reinsert the speaker connector. Each of the white connectors are keyed so they can only go one way. I'll go ahead and install the smaller of the 2 connectors at the top. And again, the larger connector is also keyed. I'll go ahead and insert that into the top location and give it a good little push to make sure it's seated. Take the bottom cover and position it into place. There are 2 supporting tabs at the back. Make sure those are in place and bring the panel down fully. You may want to go ahead and plug in the micro USB cable and make sure everything is working fine before reinstalling the remaining screws. Everything looks fine here, so I'll go ahead and unplug the power. Flip it back over and reinstall the 1 screw at the bottom middle, and then the 2 screws at the back. And that's it. Pat yourself on the back. You've just upgraded your device with the new board. Now we'll take a look at some gameplay of both Berzerk and Frenzy after the board swap, as well as TopRacer, which doesn't require a board replacement. After swapping the board in both Frenzy and Berzerk, you can now see the left-hand side, and the game is now fully playable. It's difficult to get a good image of these small 2.75-inch LCD displays, but here's a quick look at some of the Berzerk gameplay. Frenzy can also now be played and is a fun and challenging sequel to Berzerk. Let's check out some brief gameplay. I do want to point out that the darker area is the shadow casting from my camera and not a defect in the LCD panel. TopRacer was another tabletop available from the Kickstarter and has a Bleem logo at the bottom. It looks like the website bleem.net is not yet live at the time of this video. However, you can find this machine from Pico Interactive and perhaps other locations for around $60 US. I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested. TopRacer for the SNES was released in 1992, and this game includes 64 racing tracks in 16 countries. Like the other two models, it includes the micro USB cable, but no power adapter. Here's a quick look at the manual if you want to pause and read it. The unit is nearly identical to the other models and includes a headphone jack, volume control, and a pretty cool steering wheel that has a smooth tension on it, which is nice. At the back is the micro USB port for the power, and you can also install 4 AA batteries in this machine if you prefer. There are 2 additional buttons on the right that are used for menu navigation. Let's go ahead and plug it up and check it out. You'll navigate the menus by pressing the up and down buttons and the start button to make your selection. The steering wheel seems to work pretty good. The game itself seems to auto-straighten, which requires a continuous turn on the wheel for sharp turns. This takes a little getting used to, but the game itself is pretty fun. Let's take a closer look. In case you're interested in more information, the Kickstarter campaign did receive 339 backers, and there is more information available at the link below. Berzerk and Frenzy are available at the time of this video, but only through eBay, and I suspect they won't be around for very long. There was a Berzerk and Frenzy both available for $99 with the boards pre-installed, and more than 10 available that you'll have to swap yourself for around $69. There is also a Coleco Mini Facebook group. Again, all links are below if needed. Hopefully, if there are any future models, Coleco will get a better handle on quality control before shipping them out. However, I do commend them for doing the right thing and sending out the corrected boards. If you have any nostalgia for Berzerk or Frenzy, you may be put off by the NES version of the games. However, I personally found them fun to play, but having the original arcade ROMs would have made them much better and perhaps more collectible. Granted, that may not have been possible due to licensing of the original Berzerk and Frenzy games having been purchased from Stern by Atari recently. Comment below with your thoughts on these tabletops. Do you have one? If so, how do you like it? If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please let me know by clicking the like button. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel and want to see future content like this, please consider doing so. And with that, I look forward to talking with you again very soon.